Hey guys, welcome back. Tisha here, back with another chapter reading for Shattered Dreams. Go ahead and do me a favor and hit the like button because it helps the channel. I'm sorry about last time and it being so short. Can't make any promises. I think this reading will be longer. It was getting dark and I had to run some more errands and charge it to my head and not my heart. But here we are with chapter 36. We left off with Irene saying, "Peace out, Verlin." Go ahead, do me a favor, hit the like button. Let's jump into it. I saw Priscilla walk down the aisle of the church and kneel beside my husband at the altar. Loudly, I cried out to Verlin, hoping I could stop the ceremony. But it was too late. He kissed the bride as I ran hysterically outside and fell into Linda's arms for comfort. My remorseful sobs woke me. Oh, goodness gracious. Thank goodness. Because if she had went there, I would have been like, girl, it was only a dream. But I knew it was true. Obsessed with this premonition, I was glad 2 days later when Becky offered to take all 7 of my kids to the park and let me stay home alone. Once they were gone, I turned on the radio to try and drown out my torment. Bonnie Tyler was belting out, "It's a heartache. Love him till your arms break. Then he lets you down." Didn't Verlin realize he let me down? He hadn't called or seen us for 5 months. Wait a second. We've jumped to it being 5 months since she left him, and he doesn't even care. Meanwhile, he was losing it when Suzanne left him, which goes to show you he really did not care about Irene, because if he did, he would have handled the situation differently. The music from the radio was loud enough that I didn't hear his footsteps. I jumped up in fear as someone sprawled on top of me. In my shock, I fought off his rapid kisses. Then Verlin rolled me over, pinning me beneath his large frame. Yes, a part of me still wanted to respond to his advances and let him kiss away my fears, but I knew where it would end, and I fixated on that. "How's my little sweetheart doing?" he said. It's been 5 months. She left. You didn't care about her feelings or any of that stuff. And you're going to say to her, "How's my little sweetheart?" I tried to push his body off mine. "Not as good as you," I snapped. "You married Priscilla, didn't you?" Instantly, he fell to hedging. "Where did you get that idea?" "Friday, I dreamed you married her. I've cried for 2 days hoping it wasn't true, but it is, isn't it?" He buried his head on my shoulder. "Please don't ask me that, Irene. Please." He clung to me as though he wanted to shut out the world. "I married her, but I'm here with you." Doesn't that mean something? Hell no. It means once again you didn't consider her feelings or care about her because she didn't want you to marry him, and she told you what would happen if you did, but you don't believe her and you think you can do what you always do, which is what we're seeing right here. I went berserk. He tried holding me down, but I pulled myself from his grip. I ran out to the carport, just steps ahead of him, and jumped into the Honeybee. As soon as I started up the motor, he forced himself into the passenger seat beside me. "Get out! Get out of my car! Get out of my life!" I screamed. He begged me to just listen to him, to try and understand why he'd done it. I didn't need to listen. This time, I knew exactly why he'd done it. Wheels spinning, I backed the car out blindly, driving so fast I skidded around the corner. "Please calm down, Irene, please," Verlin whined, but I drove faster onto Maryland Parkway. "Just stop somewhere before you kill us," he demanded. I came very close to giving into my rage and deadly impulses, to driving head-on into the semi-truck coming towards us and thereby ending it for us both forever. But I finally pulled into an abandoned gas station and said, too blinded by tears to drive any farther, Verlin turned off the car and tried to force me into his arms. I fought and screamed, pushing him away. Irene, I love you. You've got to understand I love you. Hissing as I spoke, I gritted my teeth. If this is love, for God's sake, Verlin, don't love me 1 minute longer. He let me rage at him for several minutes until I eventually wound down exhausted. Then he told me, I have your interests at heart. Irene, believe me, I love you. No, you don't. And maybe he does love her. There's a difference between loving someone and being in love with someone. And it's clear he is not in love with her. I felt so numb. My head was throbbing like crazy as I sat in silence, collecting my thoughts. Verlin, I'm going to tell you one final time how I feel. Don't you say a word until I am through. You've ruined my life. I married you thinking you could exalt me. You promised if I obey you, I'd one day be a goddess. I've done everything you told me to, and look at me. I've become a devil. I was a beautiful green plant when you married me, but you neglected me. All I ever wanted, all I ever asked was to be watered with your love. I never asked you for money. I took whatever you gave me, but even that became less and less. The beautiful green plant wilted, withered, and finally dried up completely. Then one day, you happen to come along and see that there's nothing left of the plant except for one small sprig. So you say, oh my, I've got to save it. My voice cracked then, but I shed no tears. I went on. You say, I'll revive the plant. So you piss on it. That's how it is, Verlin. It's too late. I've been threatened with hell for so many years. I'm not afraid anymore. No one can send me to hell because I'm already there. I paused, so he tried to kiss me, but I brushed him away. She just put her heart out there, and he doesn't even try to really hear her out. Instead, his immediate thing is to love bomb her in an effort to prevent her from going any further and to leave him, when really what she needs is for him to acknowledge her pain. But he has yet to do it. Let's see if he does. I knew things were bad, but not that bad, he said. Irene, what you've got is a broken heart, and I can fix that if you'll give me another chance. How many times has this man promised her various things and not done what he said he was going to do? So now here you are, and she's supposed to buy it. She's supposed to believe that, oh my goodness, he's going to try to do this again, and he's going to try to make this right by me. Yeah, right. You've already shown her that you're not capable of doing right by her because you don't want to. You don't. He doesn't care about her. All he cares is that he gets what he wants. No, Verlin, it's too late. I can mend it, glue the pieces back together again. Verlin, there are no pieces. Ah, come on, not even little tiny ones? No, Verlin, not even dust. Verlin went to great lengths to try to get me back into his fold. He even tricked me into going on a trip to Europe with him and my oldest son, Andre. I'd always wanted to see Europe, and I had a wonderful time on my trip. While we toured those 16 countries and met so many kind and loving people, I kept remembering how Joel taught us that God would send them all to hell. I wondered how it was that God favored only our small group in Mexico. Throughout the trip, Verlin and I shared no intimacy, not even holding hands, although he tried many times. I slept alone each night while Andre shared a bed with his father. Verlin mourned the whole time about my hard-heartedness, especially since he was spending so much money trying to soften me up. I felt sorry for him, but not sorry enough to trust him again with my heart. Good girl. When we arrived in San Diego, all 12 of our other children came to meet us, and we took our first and last family photo. Let me see if that's in this photo section. She said all 12. because y'all know she had some pictures in here, and I showed some of them, but I don't, or maybe it's not in here. No, she got, sorry y'all, I'm just trying to see if the picture's here, because I'm gonna go back to show us these pictures later. Oh, here it is. A family picture with 12 of our 13 children below. Our 25th wedding anniversary, taking upon my return from Europe in 1978. I don't know if that's good. I don't know. Okay, I'll show the pictures. I might have jumped ahead. So you see, wow, they went from this to this. This one right here, I believe, is after Europe. Beautiful family, but it ain't worth all of that. All right, let's get back to it. It was July 3rd, 1978, 25 years to the day after Charlotte, Verlin, and I hid under some trees in Memory Grove, and she placed my hand in his for the first time in all eternity. So at this point in this picture, she's been married to him for 25 years. Wow. What's up with that number? How was Christine 25 years when she left? Was Christine's mom 25 years when she left? Y'all, this is getting interesting. Okay, let me keep going. I don't know about Christine's mom, but I think Christine was around 25-year mark. Hand in hand for time and all eternity. That evening, after our photo shoot, Verlin took us to a Mexican restaurant where all 15 of us sat at one long table. This was the only time we'd ever gone out to eat together as a complete family in 25 years. This is the first time she and her husband have had a meal with their kids outside of the home. Wow. I'm sure that many reasons attributed to that, not just financial, but also the fact that he just didn't have time. It may have been the only time we all sat down to a meal together anywhere. Oh, never mind. First time even, period. I watched the people seated around us, smiling and staring at such a large family. I was proud, but at the same time sad. I knew what they didn't, that in many ways, this was just an illusion. I spent the next 3 years out in the world, away from Verlin and his other wives, away from almost all polygamous influences. Becky and her husband, Garland, tried to help me and my kids acclimate to life outside of our fundamentalist enclave. Or is it enclave? Enclave? Becky was one of my mother's children to have completely avoided polygamy. She who was a free thinker who gave up an organized religion altogether, but she lived my nightmare as a child and knew from where and what I was coming. She had a great deal of compassion for me. Since I was now free from Verlin and my children were all of school age, I suddenly had time for myself. Considering I only graduated 9th grade, I seldom gave my educational ambitions any serious thought. But now I felt compelled to get further schooling. I enrolled in several classes at the community college in Las Vegas. I love the creative writing, public speaking, and self-awareness courses. As a result of these classes and the place in which I found myself in life, I began to wonder if I might have something important to say. It was the birth of a dream I would nurture for many years, to one day write and talk to people about my experiences living in plural marriage. My hunger for knowledge led me to read avidly. I consumed 4 or 5 books a week in areas of psychology and philosophy and biology and bibliography, self-help and world religions. And as my mind expanded, I experienced something I would have never expected: anger. As a fundamentalist Mormon woman, I've been admonished not to delve into the mysteries or listen to others' counsel. We were to believe and follow the narrow edicts of our husbands, our teachers, and our leaders, period. We weren't to bother ourselves with anything else. That's because they don't want them to gain knowledge, because with knowledge there's understanding, and with understanding that means more and more of them would realize that they could have so much more for themselves, and that this may not be the path that they need to go down. Learn to do as you are told. If you are told by your leader to do a thing, do it. None of your business, whether it's right or wrong. Journal of Discourses, Volume 6. When I began to explore outside my faith, I saw why they'd gone to such lengths to keep us ignorant. There were so many other ways to think about things, some of them quite persuasive. A part of me wanted to find out all about them, as frightening as it was. Eventually, though, the fear began to win out. Life on the outside proved to be just plain uncomfortable. I felt like a zoo animal let loose in the wild. I had no job skills, so we lived off welfare. When the children told Verlin how we were all eating and that we had food stamps and welfare, he was furious. He actually wrote a letter to the welfare department telling them he was supporting me and I had no right to be in their system. So you're so afraid of this system finding out that you're married to all these women, that you at one point had her acting like she was just your sister-in-law, but you're not afraid to write in to the same system and tell them that you're supporting her? Wow. Interesting how when things don't go his way, what he's willing to do. I wish they would have locked his butt up. He said he had always supported me and was willing to continue if I come back to the home I abandoned in Mexico. I trembled when they called me in to interrogate me and read me Verlin's letter. They wanted an explanation, and I tearfully splattered polygamy all over the social worker's desk. Seeing my hopeless plight, they decided I was more than qualified for their help. There were many other vexations as well. A couple of men I met wanted to date me, but I turned them down because I was sure they'd lose interest as soon as they found out I had so many children, seven of whom still lived at home with me. Frankly, I think I was scared of going on a date at that point. It was just too contrary to my religious training and my past way of life. Everything was different. The variety among the people and the ideas I encountered was itself a huge shift from my prior life, in which everyone thought and acted the same way and believed almost exactly the same things. And then there was my constant doubt and guilt over the choices I made to leave Verlin in the church. Overcoming 40 plus years of indoctrination is a monumental task, no matter how much the bottom seems to have dropped out of your belief system. To fuel the guilt, I could always fall back on that handy mind bender with which our early prophets encourage us. Plural marriage is a high calling that damns more people than it saves. This is fallible. People fail polygamy, but polygamy itself is infallible. As hard as all this was for me, it may have even been harder for my kids. I had at least lived in the United States before, but all my kids ever knew was life within our various church colonies down in Mexico and Central America. The culture and the people they encountered in Las Vegas and later in McKinleyville, California, when we followed Becky and her husband there to live in a rental house they purchased, was totally foreign to them. This was highlighted for me when I enrolled them in American public school for the first time. A week after Seth entered kindergarten, I received a note from a psychologist asking me to come up to the school for a conference with him. When I arrived, he was tactful but very serious. I want to talk to you about your son, Seth. I've given him several tests and he's failed every single one. From my evaluation, he appears to be retarded and needs to be in a special class. Oh, wow. hate that R word, but it's what she has in the book. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Retarded. He's one of the smartest kids I have. The look on the psychologist's face told me he thought I was the problem, and I was living in complete denial. Still smiling to myself, I asked, "May I see the test he took?" Something is certainly wrong because I know he's a bright child. "Excuse me," he cut in. "I'm the psychologist here. I'm sorry if you disagree with me, but he must go to special classes." Okay, you're not willing to allow her to see the test or let her know what he did wrong. As a parent, you have to advocate for your kids. And I'm not saying he might not have some deficits there. That's not what I'm saying, because I don't know what he was being taught. But don't ridicule her and demean her and talk down to her because she's trying to advocate for her child and she's trying to see what it is that you see that's making you feel this way about her son, who she feels is very capable of doing better. Still, I'll be glad to show you the test we gave him. Good. He opened a picture book. On the first page was a baseball mitt. "See," the psychologist said, trying to convince me. He couldn't even tell me what it was. Oh my goodness. These kids haven't had some of the toys that other children have had. They were excited about little balls that were used. He knows nothing about this. These are kids that got apples and little trinkets and stuff for Christmas. And you're sitting here not knowing the backstory behind him and automatically assuming there's something else going on, where you just need to talk to him and figure out some other things, because you're going to have to reach him in a different way. Then he turned the page, and look here. He couldn't identify Mickey Mouse, a fireman, a policeman, a fire hydrant. They're so sheltered, they don't even know any of this stuff. I put my hand over the page with the fire hydrant, stopping him before he can go any further. "Seth's never seen any of those things," I informed him. "He's lived in Mexico and Nicaragua all his life. Had you asked him what a burro was, or a three-toed sloth, or a monkey ox, ox, coconut, banana, machete, or sugarcane, he could have told you." I continue, pointing to the next page. "This light bulb, for instance, he's never seen one. We'd always lived without electricity. In fact, I have to reprimand Seth most every time I hear the toilet flush. He's in there tearing squares of toilet paper from the roll, watching excitedly as the tissue disappears." Wow. Wow. It's all new to him. We've never had a flushing toilet before. The psychologist was amazed. Together we scanned through all 3 books. Not one thing pictured in them was familiar to Seth. The psychologist shook his head. "I want you to know this is the first time I've been made aware of the unfairness of these tests. Now I can see why we may have been improperly screening children from other countries, placing them in unsuitable circumstances." Wow, y'all. This really puts things in perspective. This is why we got to advocate for our babies, because they were ready to put her child into that class. If she had not asked those questions, then he would have been held back for no reason. "I'm so sorry, but I'm very thankful you've brought this to our attention, Mrs. LeBaron. By the way, when I was in my internship at the Utah State Mental Hospital in Provo, I met one of the nicest men I'd ever met, and his name was also LeBaron. He was friendly, tall, blonde man who had a flawless character. I was so impressed by him, I named my son after him." "What do you call him?" I said. "LeBaron," he said. "Did you know the man's first name?" "No, I never did, but he was a great guy." I opened my wallet, pulling out a photo of Verlin taken while he was working at the state mental hospital almost 30 years before. I put it on the man's desk. Oh my, this is him. I can't believe it. Why, I'd recognize him anywhere. He smiled. So it's your husband? Yes, I said. I cannot believe it either. Living in the States also made it impossible for my children to see their grown brothers and sisters, half-siblings, cousins, and extended family in Mexico. I just thought about something. She called that her husband. So at this point, is she saying that for the purposes of the teacher and not having to go into detail about it? Or is it because she still sees him as her husband? The three oldest, Margaret, Sandra, and Connie, begged me repeatedly to take them back there. Most of all, they wanted their father and reprimanded me constantly for taking them so far away from him. Their tears wore me down, producing a new uneasiness in me. In his own way, Verlin was a good father, and they needed him. How can he be a good father when he's gone 5 months without seeing them just because he was so busy with all the other wives? Not because he was in the military or out doing certain things, but it was because he was so busy doing other things, wasting money, having them live in these terrible conditions, all because of a prophecy that he never did receive. Does the bare minimum. Spends more time getting wives than with your children. But we're going to say he's a great father. The bar is so low. In his own way, he was a good father and they needed him. But I knew what it was like to submit to him. And I didn't think I could stand being one of 10 wives any longer. 10. Besides, I hoped I could ultimately give my kids more by living in the States and outside polygamy. Then again, it was not just the kids who longed for the familiarity of Mexico. I fit in so much better there than here. If I returned, I could also stop living off welfare and just maybe get rid of my guilt about abandoning God and Verlin. Perhaps I could bear it at least until all my kids were out of the house. I felt utterly conflicted. I was wary of defending myself to my children and looking for any good excuse to go back to Mexico. But I also dreaded and felt foolish making that decision. I called Becky, hoping she could tell me what I should do over pie and coffee at Denny's. I expressed my concerns to her. I wanted a good future for my children. I also wanted one for myself. Becky was heartbroken at the possibility that I might leave, but she also wanted me to do what was best for me and my kids. Not certain what that was, she recalled a friend of hers recently recommending a palm reader who was supposedly very accurate in predicting the future. Okay, so we're going to go to palm readers instead of trying to figure out a way to get our sister help so that she isn't feeling like she's stuck and she needs to go back. I guess it's hard for the kids to be uprooted from their other siblings and things of that nature, and I'm not trying to say it's not. But I feel like her going back, it just continues to make her be bound. Becky was rather into that sort of thing, and in this case, she hoped it might help me think more positively. She felt so strongly about my going to the psychic, she said she'd accept all responsibility for taking me there. I had many misgivings about it, but I went along simply because I fell back into my old habit of listening to other people rather than trusting myself. Besides, I felt I was drowning and needed answers. Still, I felt great apprehension as we approached the door. 1,000 voices from my past screamed at me to stay away from psychics because the Bible forbids any interaction with such deviation or sorcery, witchcraft, consultation with the dead, and the alike. As Mormon fundamentalists, we've been taught instead to listen only to the brethren whose intuition was supposedly far better. But Becky was unencumbered by any of the voices. She walked right up and rang the doorbell and then turned to me. Hey, sis, maybe Lady Maria will see some good-looking man in your future who'll take you, kids and all. I was so racked by guilt, I could barely laugh. According to Mormon fundamentalist beliefs, I'd already sinned by leaving my husband. Even worse, I all but abandoned my personal commitment to the overall practice of polygamy. Now I wondered if I'd be damned for coming to see a fortune teller as well. A portly, dark-haired woman with colored ribbons in her thick black braids inviting us in. I watched her intently as my mind spun. Was she Italian? Mexican? From the devil? How much do you charge? Becky asked her. $40 each. I wondered if Maria thought her big smile would make me feel better about being ripped off. Thanks anyway, I heard myself say, but I can't afford $40 right now. I silently thanked God I was getting out of this creepy situation. But I got pulled right back in when Becky said, "You go first, sis. I'll be glad to pay for us both. Your sister is struggling. She's struggling in many ways. And you gonna waste $40 on this lady to tell her something? Oh boy." And I'm not saying I'm not gonna judge anybody on anything like that. What you do is what you do. I personally don't want to mess with psychics. If you do, that's fine. I just feel like I could do something better with that money. Maria motioned for me to follow her. When Becky came to, Maria stopped and said, "I only take one person at a time. We must have complete privacy so I can concentrate." I sat at a small table with a red linen tablecloth. Smoke from burning incense rose up from the table, and the smell stung my nostrils. Incense jacked me up too. My allergies say no, 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 and they burn. Just me. Maria sat on a wooden chair opposite me. "Give me your right hand," she ordered, spreading my fingers wide apart as she peered at my palm. "I see you going to Mexico." My heart fell. Why did she say that? Why not New York or Paris? "I see you left your husband because of another woman. But don't worry, he didn't love her as he did you." "You have 13, maybe 14 children?" she asked. When I nodded, she was right. She continued, "I know you won't like this. I can feel it, but you must return to your husband." "Why?" I asked, wondering how she knew all these things. "Because only you can teach him certain things." I shook my head. "I'll never go back." "I know how you feel," she assured me. "As I said, there are certain lessons in life that only you can teach him. I can promise you this, in 1 year, you'll know why you went back." While Becky had her fortune told, I reprimanded myself for being crazy enough to have come here. I didn't believe in soothsayers, but if she was a fake, how did she know so much about me? I returned home, wishing I minded my own business. Now I just had one more thing to worry about. Next, Becky was given 2 tickets to a psychic fair at the College of Redwoods. Her friend suggested to Becky that she take me along. I decided I got myself into this deep already. It wouldn't hurt to have a second opinion. Becky and I took seats on opposite sides of the conference room, hoping not to influence each other. I don't remember the speaker's name. She was a pretty blonde woman who worked in Florida as a psychic for a police department. After an hour of amazing demonstrations, she announced she'd show us how to do what she called psychometry. Passing around an empty cigar box, she instructed us to place a ring or watch or some other small article in it if we wanted to participate. Oh, she must be telling them whose stuff is whose. As the box went around, I held my gold ring, which had love inscribed on it. My daughter Donna had given it to me for my birthday. I knew after watching her that this woman was amazingly accurate. I put my ring in the box while praying. "God, I must know for sure what I should do about my future. Please let the psychic pick out my ring when she does the demonstration." Someone handed the box back to the psychic, who turned to a woman in front row and asked her to pick out an article. She told the woman to stand up, holding the wristwatch she'd just chosen from the box. "Now say the very first thought that comes into your mind." "Oh, this sounds silly," the woman remarked, embarrassed to say what she thought. "Go ahead, flow with it. Say it no matter how silly you think it is." "Well, I see early Europeans sailing ships on the ocean," she laughed, embarrassed. "Whose watch is this?" The psychic motioned for the woman to hold it up high so it could be identified. A tall man in his 30s came forward to retrieve his timepiece. "Wow, that's exactly right. I'm working with friends, diving in the ocean to recover treasures from a sunken 15th century ship." For the next 15 minutes or so, we were amazed by the accuracy of the participants' first thoughts. I'm gonna be honest with you, I kind of want to see this. I want to see that done. That sounds kind of cool. I'll do that. Like, I'll watch that part, but don't tell me about what's going to happen in my life. I don't want to know that. Now, I'll do the last one myself, the psychic said. She reached in and drew my ring from the box, holding it up. I see this woman going to Mexico. She won't like it, but she must go. This person has suffered. She's been a pioneer. I see she has 13 or 14 children. Whose ring is this? I came forward. She continued. I see you left your husband or companion. You must go back to this man, even though I see you left him because of another woman. In fact, I see many women in his life. You must return, for he has some very important lessons he must learn, and only you can teach them to him. Oh, goodness. Y'all, she was done. Why y'all sending her back? Okay. Clearly she's going to go back. Sensing my unwillingness, she added, don't be downhearted. I promise, in exactly 1 year, you'll know why you returned. I also see happiness and success in your future. Faced with a clear answer to the question I've been asking, I found it nearly impossible to accept. I made myself almost sick going back and forth in my mind, weighing the horrors of both of my choices. I get it. I get it. She was told this, but my question is, and I guess we'll find out later, what is it that she's supposed to teach him that no one else can? Is Verlin going to leave? Because I don't think he leaves. I don't know, because I don't know a whole bunch about him. But is he going to leave? Is he going to apologize to her? Is he going to actually treat her differently? Is he going to be better towards her and her kids and have her living in better conditions? Is she going to be in a situation where her children are being taught and they are given skills that don't just require them to do manual labor outside for their father? Like, what is she going to learn in going back? Finally, exhausted by my own fear and ambivalence, I took a walk, seeking the answer from God. I told him I would do whatever he wanted me to do, whether it meant me going back to Verlin or doing everything it would take to make my life work right where I was. In that moment of surrender, I had a miraculous spiritual experience that comforted me. It was so profound. I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt I would be able to return to Mexico for a year and trust God with the outcome. Armed with that God-given courage, I called Verlin the next morning. He was shocked when I told him to come and get me and take me back to Mexico with him. He tried so often to coax me back, promising me all sorts of things, if only I would return. Now, he was baffled by my unexpected change of heart, but tickled that I wanted to come. On August 16th, 1980, Verlin brought his truck, pulling a U-Haul trailer behind it. I wonder what that conversation looked like for the other wives when they realized she was coming back. I wonder what he thought. I wonder if he thought she was coming back because she couldn't hack it. This is a man who went as far as to taking the public assistance that she was getting and getting it shut down because of how badly, in my opinion, he wanted to punish her. I don't really feel like it was just because of his beliefs. I think that he was trying to do anything to get her to come back. And now here she is, and she's coming back. And it's what he wanted. We loaded up my possessions and drove to San Diego. We left there the next evening, driving across the scorching Southwest, and arrived in Colonial LeBaron on August 18th. Even today, I wondered about this event and the involvement of the psychics in my experience. I've told this story as it happened, so I can't deny the facts. However, I know psychics are not godly sources of counsel. All I can now surmise is that God loves me so much that, like people in the Bible, he'd have a donkey talk to me if it would help me down this path. It is so amazing to me, all that she's gone through. And I'm going to be honest. I feel like, and this is just me talking here, I feel like everything happens for a reason, but I don't get the reason yet for her to have to go back. And I also feel like she's already given so much of herself. Why is she expected to now give more to this man that doesn't seem to respect or appreciate her? But you all let me know what you think of this chapter. We really don't have much further to go. Sad face. But no worries. We'll be on part 2 soon. Thank you guys so much. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Until next time.